you've got to shorten up and sit up.
Auto! Ready, go!
Ahoy there.
Hello, everyone. I'm sure you've noticed a slim young lady coxing in the film we have just seen.
Yes, indeed. That's why I'm giving you that nautical expression. Yes, it's very unusual, isn't it, Hiromi-san? In fact, very rare to see a female cox for men's eights. Actually, the young lady you saw was the first female cox of the Oxford University boat in Oxford's long, long rowing history. And her name, as you probably know, is Sue Brown. And she happens to be in Japan right now. And so we asked her to come along today and tell us all about the famous Oxford and Cambridge boat race and rowing in general. So, Sue, hello, and thank you very much for coming along today.
Thank you. Well, actually, the film we have just seen was taken 2 years ago on the Smida. But why were you in Japan at that particular time?
Well, we were invited both Cambridge and Oxford to compete in the Regatta 50th anniversary regatta.
Yes.
And so what we have just seen was practice for that race.
That was practice for the race, yes. We were very loath to practice, in fact. But,
Why is that?
well, we just won the boat race 10 days earlier, and we've been training for that for 6 months.
My goodness.
And we thought, you know, nice trip to Japan, you know, see Japan.
Ah, yes.
But unfortunately, we were expected to train rather harder than we wanted.
Well, I mean, that's pretty tough, isn't it, after all that training they'd done in England?
Anyway, they practiced. And how did you find the course? Was it easy?
Well, no race is easy. It's always hard work. Sumida we found a little bit rough. There were a lot of press boats and low-flying helicopters.
My goodness, yes.
Which created a lot of
Chopping up the
waves.
water.
So it wasn't a very comfortable row.
Because you're not used to all the hubbub. Anyway, did Oxford win?
Well, yes.
I'm a bit partial.
Yes, I'm very partial. And if Oxford hadn't won, Sue wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have allowed her to come along.
True. Anyway, that Oxford-Cambridge boat race is world famous, and I understand it is held at the end of March or early April?
That's right, yes.
And you came at that time just after the race.
That's right. That was the year in which we just won for the 6th successive time.
6th time in a row.
1981.
My goodness me. Well then, why don't we now take a look at the film showing Oxford winning again on the Sumida River.
That's in fact the Regatta cruise.
Ah, yes.
4 hours.
But we'll see something of you, I hope.
Is Oxford-Cambridge race often done abroad?
We don't usually race Cambridge aboard, although both crews go abroad to race other crews. It's quite rare to meet Cambridge
Abroad.
country.
Now here, which was the actual Cambridge and Oxford cruise here?
That's me. We're on the far side of the
That's
picture.
you, is it?
Yes.
Are you on the far side in the distance? I suppose Cambridge was rather keen to come in, was it, to...
We accepted that we were the better crew, and
on the Sumida in Japan.
they wanted to see as much of Japan as we did.
Just like you did.
Yes.
Well, why is it, Sue, that Oxford has been winning so often in recent years? Where does this great strength come from?
I think we've got a far more realistic training programme than the Cambridge crews have. who've got excellent coaches, and they're always planning for the future. So although we're training for this year, they're looking to the year ahead as well,
Yes,
which Cambridge
indeed.
don't tend to do quite so much.
That's rather interesting, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Anyway, the starting point for this race was Ryogoku-bashi, and the finishing point was Shirahige-bashi. So how long was the course?
Course is 4,000 metres.
And how does that compare with the Oxford and Cambridge boat race course?
The course in London is 6,000 metres.
So considerably longer.
That's right, yeah.
Yes. Well, now, it's 2 years, Sue, since that race that we have just seen, and here you are, back in Japan. Why are you here? What are you doing? Are you coxing somebody?
Well, no, the first trip was just for 1 week, and I became very interested. I had a lovely time, but not long enough to see enough of Japan.
Quite. A week in Japan is not long enough.
That's right. So I'm actually, I have a English teaching job as part of the Wolfers scheme.
Excuse me, what is Wolfers scheme?
The Wolfers scheme is a Monbusho-sponsored scheme in which Monbusho recruits young graduates from British universities.
Yes, I've heard about it.
Yes, indeed. We had some of those young people on this program before, didn't we?
Yes.
And how long do you spend in Japan under this scheme, Sue?
Either 1 or 2 years.
I see. And when did you arrive?
In September 1982.
September 82. Well.
And you said you're teaching English now. Did you study English at Oxford too?
I didn't know. In fact, I studied biochemistry.
Well, you should be teaching biochemistry, not English. You probably find English is more difficult, is it?
It's very difficult.
And you're from Wadham, is that right, Sue?
That's right.
I seem to remember being rather surprised when you said you were from Wadham, because when I was at Oxford, Hiromi, there were no girls in certain colleges.
Is that right?
There indeed is a picture of Sue's college at Wadham.
Beautiful.
Looks as though it was the winter time, is that right, Sue?
That's
Snow on the
right.
ground?
That's right, yes, snow. And cherry blossoms just on the corner of the picture.
Really?
And cherry blossoms at the same time.
Well, that's typical, Hiromi, of English weather. There's no rhyme nor reason for it, is there?
Well, anyway, I'm not very familiar with the college or university system of Oxford and Cambridge. Perhaps we could talk about it a little bit?
Yes, well, there's a picture of Cambridge, actually, isn't it, Sue? What college is that? King's, yes, taken from what is commonly called the backs from the river. Very beautiful in the springtime. Anyway, yes, Hiromi, any more questions about the system?
Yes, I've heard that your system is a bit different from ours.
Well, certainly Oxford and Cambridge are, can I say, unique, Sue?
I think, well, also Cambridge and Durham. Durham
They have
has
the same system, doesn't it? Yes. The university is made up, actually, of the individual colleges, and each college is a kind of mini university on its own, isn't it, Sue?
Yes.
In that you can study
you get your actual tutoring is within your college, but you go to the university for lectures in your different subjects.
How many students in Wadham?
There were 300 undergraduates and about possibly 100 graduates when I was there.
And when I was at Brasenose, which was a good few years ago, of course, there were far fewer than that. There is a nice aerial view of Oxford, and we can actually see Sue's college, Wadham College.
Where is it, I wonder?
We're going to see it in a moment, the top left-hand corner. We can't see it very clearly, but anyway, there it is, roughly speaking. And then in the bottom left-hand corner of that picture, where the pointer is right now, that's Brasenose, my college, right in the centre of Oxford. Anyway, we would, of course, Sue, like to ask you why you got into coxing and rowing in general while you were at Oxford. But before we do that, let's watch a film of the Oxford and Cambridge race.
Yes, this was taken last year on March 27th, and of course the cox was you, Sue, wasn't it?
Cox was Sue.
And we're off. And it looks as though Cambridge might just have got away slightly better. Difficult to tell from this angle.
As they cross to the Surrey shore.
So the early advantage of the Middlesex station has run out. Now the Surrey bend takes over. And this is where Oxford begin to get their advantage. And it's clear now that Oxford are pulling the deficit back. And they're very nearly neck and neck at this point. And here's the post, and the flag goes down, and Oxford have won. Now Cambridge, here they are, not too many seconds behind, perhaps 3.5 to 4 lengths behind. Down goes the flag. And Oxford...
Looked like a nice day, Sue.
Beautiful day.
Yes, the river looked beautifully
day.
smart.
Yes.
And you won for
Peaceful.
the 7th
That
year
was
in
the
succession?
seventh year, yes.
Well, it looked to me definitely as though Cambridge was better at the beginning, didn't it, Hiromi-san?
And was it sort of dead heat in the middle?
For,
Perhaps you don't agree, Sue.
for a few seconds while you were passing
For a
them, I
short
suppose.
time, it took us a while to overtake. Yes.
And
Yes.
actually, of the whole series of races, which one was that?
Yes, that was the 128th.
128th. Well, and you'd won for the 7th year in succession.
And how about the total record?
Well, that was last year, so that was, I think, 1 dead heat, 68 victories for Cambridge, and 59 for Oxford. But Oxford also won this year,
So that
now we're up to
takes
60.
us up to 60. Wow, there was a time, I must say, Sue, when I was at Oxford, when we seemed to be an awfully long way behind. But
Closing the gap.
thanks to you, yes, we've been closing the gap.
Actually, I saw the race on Japanese TV.
The 83 race
Yes,
this year.
that was quite enjoyable.
Yes, I saw some of it too, but of course I didn't see Sue because she had
course
graduated from the university, no longer the cox.
And of course, I also noticed there were lots of spectators.
Yes, well, Londoners see the boat race as of course, it's an annual event in London of great importance, and they see it as sort of the beginning of spring and things like that, don't they, Sue?
Apart from the snow, which we sometimes have, and the storms.
Yes.
Anyway, still, it's very important for you Londoners, isn't
Of course,
it?
yes,
But
one of the
suppose
events.
if I were in London at the right moment and I wanted to see it, where should I go? Is it held within London?
Yes, you follow the 1 million spectators that turn up on a sunny day.
I always wonder, 1 million, how can they watch? I mean, there are so many buildings on the bank, but I suppose they manage. Anyway, it's sort of in the west of London, isn't it?
To the west of London.
To the west
yes,
of London,
just slightly,
and
yes.
in actual fact we have a map or a chart showing where it actually takes place, and you can see the start is at a place called Putney, and it ends at Mortlake, and the north shore is called the Middlesex shore, and the south is the Surrey shore. Is that right, Sue? You got
We
it
usually
right?
refer to them as stations. Middlesex
stations.
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 Sorry,
Right,
stations.
stations. Now, when was the first boat race actually rowed?
That
Sue?
was 1829, and the course, in fact, was different. The
Well,
course then...
did they start here in 1829?
No, the course then was in Henley on Thames, which is
Aha.
upstream from London.
Henley, yes. And I think I'm right in saying that Henley is known for the Henley Royal Regatta, isn't it?
That's right, Henley Royal
Which
Regatta.
I see we have a picture of on the screen.
Yes.
Well, I heard this is an international regatta, and when is it held and where?
Well,
Henley?
it's actually held in the first weekend in July, is that
July,
right, Sue?
Yes, that's right.
At Henley on Thames, and of course it is a very famous international regatta. Well, here we are back to the actual course. Now, have the races always been rowed the same way, Sue, or what?
No, well, after Henley, the race, in fact, moved into London, but was rowed from Westminster to Putney. And then I think a few races were rowed from Mortlake to Putney.
The other way around.
That's right. But since about the middle of the 19th century, they've all been rowed from Putney to Mortlake.
And is there any particular advantage, say, to have the Middlesex station or the Surrey station?
Depends very much on the tide, the weather, the conditions. More crews win off the Surrey bank,
Really?
but I mean, we won in 1981. We won off Middlesex. So
And that's part of your decision, is it, as cox?
part of my decision was done with a coach.
Yes. Well, now, as I mentioned earlier, obviously we are interested in knowing how you got into rowing, and was it something that just came upon you in a blinding flash, or have you been rowing since you were 3 or something like that?
Neither, actually. No, just friends in Oxford were interested. A lot of the students row for their colleges, and I was sort of asked to row for my college. I didn't do very well. I rowed and I coxed. But after about 6 months of, going down to the river, I was spotted by a famous coach.
Well, you must have been doing something very
I'm
efficient
sure,
and
yes.
proficient if
I
he...
think so. No, I was just small, the right size, and I suppose very mature,
And what was this coach actually looking for?
Well, he wanted coxes for the 1980 Ladies Olympic squad.
So this was in November 79
That's
or so,
right.
was it?
That's right.
And so did you go to the Olympics?
Yes, I went to the Olympics. I coxed there, but we didn't do particularly well.
Well, later on you certainly redeemed all that, and I suppose it was a very good experience for you. And did you cox for men as soon as you came back from the
Yes.
Olympics?
Well, we got back in July of 80, and I began in trials in September of that year, yes. Coxing for the men.
Very good.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention that I happened to cox once.
You did, Hiromi-san?
Yes, you didn't know
I
that
don't
side of me.
believe it.
It's true. I
I'd
was asked
imagine
to,
you in a boat.
I was asked to do it once because I was small. But of course, size alone is not a qualification for good cox, because I was never asked to do it again.
Well,
I must
well, well.
confess. Now, Sue, could you tell us what are the things that a cox has to do?
Yes, well, size is quite important, but obviously there are many, many other things. Amongst which, I mean, you have to steer, you have to look after the crew, you have to coach, you have to look after the equipment, look after the boat, make sure that, everything's working. You have to get the crew up in the morning. You have to. I was often driving the van for them because they were too tired.
You were chauffeuring?
After training, yes. Generally, first aid. I always had first aid supplies.
And do you, I mean, of course, this is a very difficult question to put to you, but because you have no experience of knowing what it was like before, but do you think that the crew found it sort of exciting or a novelty or odd or amusing to have a female as their cox?
We were difficult to say. I don't think anybody really took any notice until the press started to take interest. I mean, before I was just a cox.
Indeed.
And it made no difference. It was only when the press started coming down the whole time that the boys realised that there's something a bit different going on.
Now, you're a girl, of course, and with all due respect, presumably your voice isn't all that powerful. How did you get your message across to the man at the front of the boat?
Well, we have a wonderful little system, amplifier with microphone and speakers, and previously coxes have had perhaps 3 speakers in the boat, but in my years I had each crew member had their own speaker under their seats, so they could hear what I said.
And you have you got a sort of control box or
Yes, a
something?
special little box called the cox box.
Cox box.
Which has an amplifier and stopwatch and ratings watch.
So you don't yell through a megaphone anymore?
No. Well, people in Oxford still do, perhaps for colleges. Megaphones can still be seen, but the boat race, no, it's slightly outdated.
And you said at one point you have to encourage the crew. What can you be more specific about
Just
that?
generally, I mean, you have to keep them going during the race. It's a long, hard race. You have to encourage them. You have to tell them where you are on the course because they can't see. You have to keep them informed, and basically you have to execute the race plan. You have a set plan, a pattern, and you have to push them on when necessary. You have to push them harder.
And now, have you got your eye on the other crew, the other boat?
Well, hopefully they're behind me. But, yeah, if they're beside me, I'm always watching and I'm always telling my crew where they are. Yes.
Well, you say, if you can't see them, you know you're doing well.
That's right, absolutely, yes.
Well. I'm going to ask you this rather silly question that we always ask in situations like this. We know what you're doing and we've seen you very competently coxing the 8, but in your experience as cox, have you had any difficulties with the crew or any disasters or anything like that?
Disasters? Oh, I think the worst thing was when put salt in their tea one morning. Didn't go down very well at all.
I'm sure it did not. But how about actually on the river?
On the river, yes, we've had disasters. One race, the first race I ever did with Oxford, I in fact hit something under the water. We were just paddling and something under the water took off my rudder and fin.
Oh my goodness.
And which left it very difficult to steer. And although we did half the race, I had absolutely no control. I tried to go around the corner and it was impossible, and we just went straight on into the bank.
Did you advise the crew that you had lost control?
Yes, I told them we were going to have to stop fairly quickly.
Certainly a rather frightening experience, wasn't it?
It was.
I suppose more mental than physical in actual
Yes,
fact.
it was just a shock, you know. You're so prepared for the whole race and suddenly you stop halfway through. Terrible.
Well, we're going to see something in that vein, aren't we, Hiromi-san?
Yes, well, I just was going to mention that in the long history of Oxford-Cambridge boat race, there have been some disasters, maybe not of the same nature, but still disasters.
Yes.
And here we have an interesting film about such a disaster that happened in 1978, I believe.
Yes, I know it.
I also remember. I suppose Cambridge was unlucky, was it, Sue?
Not exactly unlucky, no.
Well, we shall find out.
It's a very, very uncertain start. But the umpires allowed it to go ahead, and Oxford seemed to take the early advantage on Surrey as we expected.
Sit back.
Yes, 4 seconds at Hammersmith unofficially, Harry. That's just over a length. And in fact, we can see now as Oxford come back onto the Surrey station, they have...
And this really is a race. Look at the conditions, too. It really is very rough there, and Oxford are getting through it slightly better than Cambridge.
Yes, and they're pushing over. They've still got that length advantage. They're pushing over now as they come to the crossing, pushing over to the Middlesex station. But almost they overlapped there when Oxford made that mistake. And you can see, this is the sinking conditions. Oxford still dominating the station now. They were overlapping at this stage. Oxford could have had a problem because they would have been in the outside of the bend. In fact, Cambridge seems to have skewed across the course at the moment. Almost if something's gone... Cambridge have stopped, in fact. It looks as if they've stopped here. It could be a rigger problem. I think they've got... No, they've picked themselves up again. I thought they had a rigger problem. It could be a sinking. Yes, it is. I thought it was a rigger problem initially, but Cambridge have really caught the water now. Water pouring over. So they've gone into the dolphin effect, and Cambridge are sinking. Cambridge are going down. That is the end of the race. There's no way now they can pick themselves up again. I thought initially equipment problems. There they go. There they go. And now it's panic. They have to get out of their shoes. You can see them now. They have these quick release straps, and now we must have the rescue. We must come in for the rescue. So Oxford win the 100...
Well, it's sad to laugh at poor old Cambridge, isn't it?
No.
But now, you hesitated when I asked you if they were unlucky, Sue. Why did you...
But I don't think they were that unlucky. I mean, one thing, I mean, Oxford managed to get over the course, and they took in only 2 inches of water, the whole length of the course. I mean, exactly the same conditions for both crews.
Indeed, they finished so well. Why did Cambridge go
Cambridge
under them?
filled up partly because they didn't take on... we have special equipment for stopping water coming in. And Cambridge, in order to keep the boat light, decided not to use that equipment. And also the cocks cut very badly across the tide, and the waves just poured in.
So the professional cox tells us that another cox wasn't doing so well, eh?
Well, you might think this is a silly comment, but I hope all these oarsmen could swim.
Oh, well, oarsmen are supposed to be able to, but I have been in a situation where I've gone down with a crew, and one of the boys has told us when we were in the water that he couldn't swim.
My goodness. And is that one of your responsibilities, getting the oarsman out of the water?
Oh, no. I couldn't rescue a 14-stone oarsman.
So what do they do?
Stay with the boat.
Stay with the boat.
Stay with the boat. The boat won't go down.
Well, anyway, we've been talking about the Oxford and Cambridge boat race, which is 8s, right, Sue? But, of course, there are other types of boat.
That's right, yes.
And here we have a chart indicating, perhaps you could tell us quickly what these are.
Yes, well, the sculls, these are when people have 2 oars each. A single scull is just one person with 2 oars.
Yes.
And a double scull, 2 people with 2 oars.
Yes.
The next one's a
Coxless pair.
coxless pair, which is two members but one oar each.
Uh-huh.
And the boat below, coxed pair, which we just missed, had a
Uh-huh.
cox with it. Then coxers 4 and coxed 4, one oar each, one boat with a cox, one without.
Mm-hmm.
Then the quads, 4
Being
people,
4, yes.
2 oars each,
Mm-hmm.
one of which has a cox and the other
One
without.
which hasn't. Mm-hmm.
And then the
And
wonderful
then the
8.
famous 8s. 8 oarsmen and Sue.
Yes, indeed.
Skulls. Interesting name, isn't it?
Expression, isn't it? You said that's one oarman,
One oars person with two
oars.
oars. The skulls.
And of course, as far as you're concerned, Sue, I suppose there's nothing but 8s, really.
Oh, the 8's the fastest, so it has to be the best boat, yes.
I mean, in ideal conditions, what sort of speed can you reach? I mean, in sort of perfect conditions.
Oh, I don't know. We covered the boat race course, 6,000 metres, in about 18 minutes.
Well, the mathematicians can.
Yes, figure out, yes.
Well, anyway, Sue, of course, unfortunately, we're running out of time as usual. Are you doing any coxing in Japan?
No, I'm not at all actually at the moment, although I'm still I still keep in contact with rowers and get all the news from Oxford.
Good. Well, I hope what we've seen today will encourage people to get out onto the river, eh, Hiromi-san? Maybe you feel like going back to coxing yourself.
Well, we'll be asked again, I'm afraid.
Anyway, Sue, I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Japan.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you very much indeed coming along and telling us all about it today. We've really been thrilled. Let's hope Cambridge sinks many more times. And so, from all of us here, it's sort of off and goodbye. Row away until the next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.